Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another LCS report. I'm Rob. He's Nick. And as always, we ask the greatest question in the world. How are you today, Nick?
I'm good, man. I will posit that maybe then the second greatest question in the world is how are you?
Oh, thank you. Yes. No, I'm happily going to take second on that one. We're doing all right. We're doing all right. I thought I was going to try something a little different. You've inspired me with your fun shirts. And so instead of going league related, I went Star Wars. So, I went
Nice.
with the Cantina Band shirt that I have.
Love
So
it.
loving it and loving your flower shirt right now, man. It's just, it's always fun to wear something a little bit fun sometimes too. So,
Yeah, I gotta it's if you have like a dark mind, you gotta wear bright colors and balance it out. That's what I found. So it's the only way to be.
shirts can be therapy. You heard it here first.
Yes, indeed, indeed. I feel good.
I love that. You look good, you feel good. But yeah,
Thanks,
I
man.
we talked about it last Tuesday or on this past Tuesday's episode. If you haven't checked that one out, go do it. We do a little bit more of a breakdown of what we saw last week, players of the week, and all that jazz. Today we're going to be looking at our picks, our power rankings. Again, you probably heard this on Tuesday, hopefully, but you're going to hear it again. We both went 5-3 this week, Nick. We both missed the Shopify Rebellion Immortals game. Not that that's a huge surprise, I don't think, to either of us. We also both missed. I was wrong on this, but we both missed the Cloud9 game, obviously, against Shopify Rebellion. So right now, Shopify, for me, has been 3 of my 6 losses. So really
Oof.
appreciate that, guys. I always run into one of those teams when I'm doing my picks. They've been my kryptonite. The one that you and I both split on was I got FlyQuest wrong. You got NRG correct. I think your faith in them is paying off. I guess that CLG faithful is continuing on even into the NRG days. And then,
Forever.
yes, oh gosh, we can only hope. I got 100 Thieves right. You got Dig wrong. Seems like the ones that obviously one of us are going to get, the ones that we, choose differently right. But it is really interesting, just to kind of see like how we end up feeling about the teams after each game. Like, now I kind of feel like I should have picked NRG in that FlyQuest game, even though I know they have the same record. And I feel like, based on our conversation before this and, before the Tuesday episode, that you're starting to see the light a little bit more with 100 Thieves along with myself. David Shynock, if you're out there, man, and watching, these are shout outs and love to you. This week we're going to get into our picks real quick. I think we are going to diverge on a couple of these. I don't think as many as I would have thought, maybe. This is a super week, by the way, for those of you who don't know. So we've got some
We got
interesting ones.
3 days.
3 days of games, so we won't be able to get into every matchup this week a little bit more like we did last week. But we'll probably, you know what, we're actually going to skip this part and go to our power rankings, and then we're going to come back to that, Nick. I keep forgetting to do that. I think that's how we need to do this. So I'll quickly run down our power rankings real quick as well. We'll talk about the teams, and then we'll get into the matchups. You guys have already seen them, but I know you want the analysis of them too, so just stick around. You'll see them. Don't worry. We both have C9 still at the top. I think that's worthy of an explanation. We'll get into that here in a second. NRG at 2, FlyQuest at 3. I think a pretty solid top 3 there. It's when you kind of get past them that things get a little bit crazy. Nick and I think I actually convinced you to put 100 Thieves 4th when we were discussing this earlier. So I would love to hear kind of your thoughts about putting 100 Thieves 4th. I'll give you my 2 cents very quickly, which is I didn't feel like there was a better team to put there right now. So that's kind of how I went with it. I do.
That's a great reason to rank a team where they should be.
I mean, look, they are, I think, a good team. I think in a normal year, again, like a 10-team league, I genuinely think that putting them at 4, I don't know that I could convince myself to do that, even with their record being 2-2. But I just think there's such a drop off after the top 3. And based on how they've been playing, I think they're just going to continue to get better. Is kind of the main reason why. And so I was happy to put them there at 4. But what ultimately convinced you outside of obviously my charm and great reasoning skills.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm with you on like there being a very definitive top three, right? Like C9's the best team.
Yeah.
NRG is definitively better than FlyQuest. FlyQuest is the third team. NRG is the second team.
Okay.
And I'm not just saying that because NRG beat Fly. I think that we put a decent amount of stock in the fact that Fly looked pretty good against Team Liquid, but that's because we all thought that Team Liquid was a good team, which
Yeah,
I
we
would
did.
say is false. I would say is false
Oh.
so far. I think they've underperformed massively, and that's kind of my point. Is that we've kind of at this point where fourth through eighth could kind of, I think anyone could beat anybody, like
Yeah.
50-50 in almost every matchup. That being said, I tried to rank teams. I tried to factor in expectations. For example, like if I was like putting teams purely on performance, I would maybe put Team Liquid eighth.
Okay.
Eh,
Okay.
reason being that, and I know you asked about 100 Thieves, but I promise this
No, this is
factors into
good. I
that.
like this.
After the first three matches, I was in the. I thought the Team Liquid was going to come out of the gates angry and swinging at Immortals. I thought it was going to be the team we expected to see will hit the rift and destroy the team we expected to be the worst team. Instead, they barely won a game that they, for the most part, looked worse than Immortals in. Team Liquid seems to be unwilling to play the early game, and it's made them look terrible. And I was talking to Arsh from NA Men yesterday, and he was like, "Yeah, Team Liquid is the worst performing team right now in terms of their gameplay." And I didn't agree with. I said that's going to change today against Immortals, and like, no, I agree with him. The only reason I have them sixth is because I think this team can be better, and I think they ultimately, like head to head, would beat the two teams below them. I have 100 Thieves fourth because they've one exceeded my expectations, and two are they the only team in these bottom five who's consistently shown an ability to execute on their game plan, win or lose.
Yeah.
River has, like I said, been phenomenal. We talked about that in the last episode, and we sing his praises constantly because there's a lot to sing about. Sniper has been awesome. Obviously, I think he's. We all knew he was potentially capable of greatness, but he's really, acclimated quickly. And I think there's a greater conversation about how K'Sante is, in a weird way, kind of training wheels for him because
Yeah, I can see
as
that.
K'Sante plays, he's a tank who plays like a fighter. Like the choices he wants to make, the mentality stuff, it's kind of like a hybrid of the two. It's part of why he's so strong. And so we saw him have a great tank game this past week. And I would say like 100 Thieves just right now are the ones who are consistently executing on a game plan and showing like they're checking boxes in games that are indicative of a team that can grow from those things. Whereas Team Liquid has won some games. They've won more games than three other teams in the league, but I haven't seen them put together something cohesive that tells me I'm saying this team should be better because I know these players can play better, not because of what I've actually seen them do.
Yeah, and I mean that's the thing, right? That's like when you have things on paper, you still have to let them play out because on paper, there are teams that should be a lot better than other teams. And that's why I like to do my preseason power rankings and then do them every week because it does matter. Mm-hmm. These games all matter. And well, everybody's like, power rankings at this point don't matter. Like they do because they evolve and they change as the season goes on. And being able to go back, at least for me, and check that out and see like, oh wow, like this is where we thought C9 was gonna be. This is watching FlyQuest go in my power rankings from like 1 or 2 all the way down to like 9th and 10th. Last split was honestly really interesting to see and something that I think it shows kind of their path during the season and how I felt about them ultimately. And so I completely agree with you. I think the thing I want to bring up to you about TL, I know you talked about we went to 100 Thieves. I think this is a good segue into TL here. I'm going to just call this out, and I'm probably going to get flamed to hell for it, but like, this is what TL do. This is what they have been since Core JJ has joined this team, and I think this is why they got impact, and I think that until Jan and APA can kind of learn this style, and until Umpty can really, I think, completely, become a part of the team. And I think this is why they struggled so much at different points last year too. They just aren't going to play the early game. Every TL team, right? Like when Doublelift came over and Core JJ was there, right? Like it was all about late game team fighting, late game objective taking, right? Like sure, they could win in their lanes, but there wasn't a lot of action early in the games. You just knew that they were going to scale. right? Like that's what they do, I feel like. And that's not to say that they can't play other styles, but I feel like it's been hard for Jan and for APA to kind of completely mesh with that. And I think we're seeing that because I think especially with APA, like he is their playmaker. Whether people want to admit it or not, I think he's the one that when he hits a go button, if it works, then it really works. And if it doesn't work, then it looks like he's trolling and the rest of the team is falling apart. And so,
Mm-hmm.
in a weird way, he kind of reminds me of Hooney in that way. I think he's maybe a little more controlled than Hooney was at times, but obviously not as skilled yet. But, again, we're going to say this, and I guess I'm going to become an APA and a Jan apologist. They're still very young, guys. They still don't have a ton of experience. It takes time to learn how to play with at such a high level with such high level players. And so I'm not gonna excuse the way that they looked this past week. I think that they are a lot better than this. But at the same time, like there's gonna be a breaking point with Team Liquid to me where they are going to have to decide if this style of play, of this just, hey, we're going to ignore the early game, or not ignore, but we're going to expect you to just straight up win in lane, and then all the action starts after that. If that's not working for them, do they change that style? And again, it's just been something I've noticed for years about Team Liquid, and it seems to have carried over. And I really thought things might be at least a little bit different heading into this year.
I agree with most of that. I'm going to push back on a few things.
Okay.
First of all,
Feel free.
I'm docking 10 points from you for saying the words breaking point while talking about Team Liquid. So that's a penalty. 10 yards.
I'll probably just I'll go into the penalty box for that one. It wasn't.
but I mean, I don't necessarily agree with you on every single team. I think the way that they've accomplished, like for example, Team Liquid won a lot of early games in the Double F Core J era. It was just that it was oftentimes just because their laners were so superior that they were smashing people.
Well, that's what I mean.
Right? It wasn't
like
necessarily
they would win through laning, but it wasn't that they were like.
But
okay,
I would say that. So I would say that the Summit Pioshik roster was able to play early game. They was a one-dimensional early game, but they were able to do it because Pioshik was able to leverage Summit's insane laning advantages. That's when that team looked its best. And in our article with APA, when I interviewed him in week 1, he was even saying the main difference from this team is that Summit and Pioshik were kind of the resource-heavy carries of last season, and this team can be more balanced. Is a more versatile jungler than Pioshik is. That's undeniable. Impact is a more versatile top laner than Summit is. That's also undeniable. The problem with that is that they have technically more options, but they're not utilizing any of them. And for my money, I actually think this team would look awesome if they played the way that 2021 EG did, where, yeah, they had Impact in the top lane, but he played carries. I'm sorry. God, who was their jungler in 2021? Svenskeren contracts, like, kind of two-headed deal, I think, Platoon.
I think that's
the point is that when Impact was on EG, he was a carry, but he was playing Renekton and going 40 CS up in 15 minutes and stuff like that. He has that gear. It seems like he's gone to Team Liquid. He's gone back to the Team Liquid Impact player that we saw, where he was just weak side, and he has his like weak side reputation. He's the best carry this team has right now. Let him put his carry pants on. Because I do agree with you that APA could be a playmaker. I think a lot of his best moments last year were Nico as a go button for this team. But that was also a crutch because what is a better unifying go button than APA? The only guy on the team speaking English last year saying go, 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 go. He even told me, he's like, that was like, I did well on that, but that's because it was, those type of engages are easy.
Yeah.
And this team is still figuring out who it is, but they need to try something. They're not doing enough in the early game, and they have ways to play. If Jan isn't that dude in lane yet, okay, let's focus more on APA. Oh, if we want to put APA on his comfort picks, like there's nothing stopping this team just because they can play other ways. They could play a more refined version of last split too, and they could play these early games around top side and be strong with it. And I think they should, because I think Impact's an incredible laner, and a lot of teams don't really. He's not known for that, especially in the LCS. A lot of teams don't rely on him for that, but he was a huge carry player in his younger years on T1, and then on EG, like his EG rosters, he was a madman. There was that one, I can't remember, I think it might have been against Revenge. He was like 120 CS up on Renekton or something insane like that. But right now they're not playing through anybody, and it doesn't matter how many options you have if you don't utilize any of them. So I just want to see them try something. We know these players are better than this, but like right now, things just aren't coming together, and the communication should be improved. I mean, this is an English speaking team in full.
Yeah.
If y'all don't know, Umti's English very solid, like good, good, good. Like, so and obviously Impact's lived here for years, so I don't know what's going on, and I hope they figure it out soon because like I do understand where you're coming from. I just think like there's so many easy ways around that, and there's this isn't how that this team isn't going to be able to work like that. They can't do that, and they should. And so like it's I just need to see them do more. And frankly, I'd like to see them do more in the early game because it's not like the mid and late game have been great. They've been better than their early game, but like that Immortals win was scary, man. It wasn't like I said. I thought Immortals minute for minute played better minutes in that game. They played more good minutes than DL did, which is a sentence that I did not expect to say at any point this year, especially 2 weeks ago. So, yeah, they got to figure something out. I think it is an identity issue. I do think they will get better as time goes on, but it's undeniable that like they've disappointed massively. And like I said, after the Immortals game, I would agree with what Arsh said that if we're looking purely at just performance through 4 games, take off the nameplates, this is the worst performing team in the LCS right now. Yeah. Even if they have a better record than 3 other teams, they have form-wise played worse than everybody else. And I hope we see that change in the Super Week.
I think that's partially because of expectations. I won't defend myself too much. I think we're saying the same things. I think I just didn't say it correctly.
I was yes-anding you. I wasn't saying you were wrong. I was like, yeah, I agree with that. Also, this though, you know, like there's other factors there.
Sorry, I think of things. I think it's interesting because I think of things as a jungler. I think you think of things as a laner, and to me, like having a proactive and solid early game includes the jungler going around helping to make plays, the laners moving out of lane. Whereas I know that for laners, most of the time it's, if you can win in lane, then that is still a solid early game. It's interesting. It's different perspectives is all. And I think, I think ultimately that you are right. And I think it is an identity crisis for this team and they're going to have to figure it out. I mean, there are less games in the LCS. There are the least amount of games that I think have ever been played in the LCS this split in 14. We'd have to go back pretty far, I believe.
No, that's the least in the history of any split because the last time we were at 8 teams was 2014, but we played like 28 regular season games or something like that. So,
which is a whole discussion for later because like I still really think that the main reason why teams in the East do so well is because they play so many more games than teams in the West. But it's not the main reason, but I think it's a very big contributing factor. But it's neither here nor there.
I miss best of threes.
I miss them so much.
I will say one more thing on Team Liquid because it's been mostly negative. What I want to see from them next week, if I could just say, regardless, I know we'll go into like the matchups and picks. Put Impact on something that he has some early game agency on. Give me Renekton. Give me Jax. Put on Lilia. He's like the LCK Lilia player. He'll immediately be the best Lilia player in the LCS, and it won't be close. Yeah. And put APA on something comfortable and play her on top side. Do that this week. Just see what happens. Lilia is so turbo busted right now, and is so good on that pick. I just want to see them get out of their. I feel like they're just playing a little more scared right now than they need to, and we know this team can be much better than this.
Oh, I completely agree. I couldn't agree more. But yeah, we will get into our picks here, as you had alluded to. I'm sure you guys want to hear why we are so split on Dignitas. We'll probably get into that a little bit, at least on these picks, but. I'll go run through the picks real quick. We'll get the ones that we are agreeing on out of the way, and then the ones that we aren't agreeing on, we'll come back to. But we're both picking C9 over Immortals, both picking NRG over Team Liquid. We diverge Dignitas, Shopify. We'll get to that in a second. We are both picking FlyQuest over 100 Thieves. Both picking TL, despite our earlier conversation over Dignitas. Which is going to make me look really bad, but I promise I will explain it later. If C9 plays, we're picking them right now. They are playing FlyQuest. I do think that game will be a lot closer than people think, but we won't dive into too much on that one. 100 Thieves taking out Immortals, and then NRG taking out Shopify Rebellion. We have Fly beating Dignitas. We have C9 beating TL. We split again. Man, it's Shopify Rebellion, man. They're the ones that we are splitting on right now, it would seem. between them and 100 Thieves, and then we have NRG and Immortals. So maybe we won't just go into the games that we split on, but I do think that they are worth a conversation. I especially think this first one of Dignitas and Shopify are a big difference. You were the one who got me all hyped up on Dignitas, and then you put them at the bottom of your power rankings, man. And now I'm questioning myself because I was like, wait, I actually think this team isn't that bad. But because like, I actually think Tomo's been pretty solid. I think Dove has surprised me a bit. I actually think XU has been quite a playmaker. I don't think Rich has been as good as we thought he was going to be. And, that was my big concern with them. But they've still stayed in every game that they've played. And they've had opportunities to win. So, and I just don't, I don't think the Shopify Rebellion game was a fluke necessarily by for their win over Cloud9, but I do think if Cloud9 had played a standard comp, I think Shopify would be 0-4 right now. And I really thought they'd be 1-3 because they beat Immortals. And I will give credit to Immortals where it's due, but if Shopify can barely beat Immortals and then needs help from Cloud9 to beat them, it doesn't make me feel all that confident.
Well, they lost to Immortals, right? Like,
yeah, that's what I mean.
like they got convincingly beaten by IMT. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I flipped. Yeah, no, I said that right. Yeah, that. Okay, whatever. Sorry, I must have messed something up. But I don't understand. I'm curious as to why you're picking them over Dignitas. Did you see something that you really feel strongly about in that C9 game that gives you confidence heading forward?
No, it's specifically it's actually a point that you made, which is that Rich has not been the focal point that I expected.
Okay.
I think Dig is still figuring itself out. I think Rich should be the focal point, but he hasn't had like some crazy pop-off performances yet. Dove has been good. I thought Dove would be fine. I think just not a lot of people know who he is, but I mean,
yeah.
If you're a mid in the LCK and you play for like fringe playoff teams, you're at the very least like a fringe playoff player in the LCS, if not better. And XG's been great. Really nice surprise. It went under the radar probably, but like he almost threw Blabber for a loop early on against Cloud9. There was like when he invaded his jungle, like the first like 4 minutes of the jungle matchup were like, oh, XG is cooking right now. Didn't work out obviously, but the reason why I picked is because I think that Dig win that match convincingly if Rich is being who I thought Rich would be. And I don't know if that's I haven't watched I'm not confident enough to say whether that's a Rich thing or a team thing, because frankly, the reason why this is hard, I mean, you mentioned Shopify is like 3 of your 6 wrong predictions. I think these are the 2 hardest teams to evaluate right now because we know where Cloud9 is. They're about where I expected they'd be. NRG and FlyQuest are about where I'd expect them to be. Team Liquid has fallen below expectations. 100 Thieves has exceeded expectations. Immortals has slightly exceeded expectations as well. I have no idea what to think about Dig or Shopify. I have no idea. I have zero conclusions. So they're playing each other. I don't know. Will a third team randomly win? The possibilities are endless. I have no idea what's going to happen in this match. The reason I chose Shopify is because I do like the cut of their jib on, they have these really innovative draft picks. I really liked what they put together in the Cloud9 game in terms of the draft. It wasn't really about the form was good, but nothing about their play made me think they're going to beat Dig, but crucially how Dig has played compared to how Shopify has played. I want to go with Shopify. I think they'll be more creative, more innovative, and I don't think that the Rich Fate God gap is enough for Dig to just turn the game on its ear on a micro level, like on an individual level. Unless Rich comes out of the gate swinging. And again, this could be a team thing. Maybe they're not playing as well around him. He hasn't popped off the page in the way that I thought he would be. Like he'd be Dig's guy. Like he'd be their franchise face for the season. Basically, is kind of how I saw this team build. So that being said, we talked about power rankings. I think in the last episode. I mean, after third place, it's C9 NRG Fly, and then all bets are off. Like I mean, these as of through 2 weeks, any of the 4 through 8 could be any number. So it's a really hard matchup. But I think ultimately, I chose Shopify because I think they're a better team than their record has shown. I think they're starting to figure out a bit more of their identity. I think people were disappointed to not see Turtle back in the lineup, but B-Boy is clearly the better player and was the intended starter to begin with. And I think just overall they are coming in with more of a game plan right now. So again, this is also like I'm not going to be shocked if it goes the other way, because these two teams are so hard to evaluate, and
Sure.
crucially at this point in the season, we've talked about like 4 through 8 is a mess. So like anything could happen, but those are kind of the reasons I chose Shopify. It has more to do with Dig not necessarily being the team we thought they were going to be in terms of identity, and how that plays into the Shopify matchup and what Shopify's been good at so far.
Okay. I mean, I think that's fair. I think, even to counter my own point a little bit, I do think, Shopify will be better now that they like know who's going to be playing AD carry. I think that that's been, that was still a surprise to me when, B-Void didn't play week 1. I actually think they may have beat Immortals with Wild Turtle, weirdly. I don't think, I was not overly impressed with B-Void personally. I thought, especially during the Immortals games, that he was in a weird, not just out of position, but in a weird position in a lot of team fights. And I don't really understand why he was so far away from his team at different points. And I think, obviously Boogie didn't play super well in the first game either, but I'd really like to see them lean into Insanity more. I really would. I don't understand why they're not doing that,
Yeah.
to be honest with you. Like, if it was up to me, I'd be putting all the eggs into that basket like now. I think that he is wildly being underused already, and I love that he's willing to play these, Scion mids and everything like that. I truly think the world of him. After what I saw with TSM last split, I really do think he's a much stronger player than is being shown right now, and I don't love that they're not using Boogie and Sanity the way that they should be in my mind. So that's kind of why I've been a little iffy with them, and I guess maybe it's because it's an expectations thing. I think, we've kind of flip-flopped on our expectations for both of those teams, and I think that that's probably the main reason why we're separating on that.
Yeah.
I don't think we have to dive into Shopify too much more. I am still give me 30 seconds here. Why did you pick them over 100 Thieves? That one is one that I am pretty surprised with. And that's not to call you out, because you're right on some of these, but
why did I pick Shopify over 100 Thieves?
Yeah, but I'm curious on that one.
That's the third day of the week, if I recall correctly.
You're right.
And I think that the Super Week will be. I think that 100 Thieves, if this game was day 1, wins. I think Shopify wins on day 3.
Wow. So
I think they have.
Wow. Okay.
I think just for this one specifically, Fatigue. And again, this is 4 through 8. My 4 through 8 predictions are, again, I'm not like this is definitive. I think all these matches could be close, but I think that Shopify's already faced an 0-3 adversity. I think they have players with a lot more experience, players who've had experience at multiple levels, good conditions, bad conditions. Like, I think by day 3 they're going to be, for the third match in a row, they will be more resilient, and that'll be enough to make a difference. Especially when we look at the strengths, kind of. I don't want to go too much into it, especially with Shopify and Insanity, but remember that his best game on TSM last year was that Graves game. Like, I don't think that they're putting him on Zach, and I think these are his ideas. I think that it'd be nice to see on some more flavorful picks that are carry focused. But
sure.
I also think we need to give this team a little bit more time. It wasn't that they were deciding who should be the starter. B-Boy, it was the starter. He arrived here, I think, about 24 to 48 hours before opening day.
Okay,
so
that's fair.
I
didn't hear anything, so I didn't know where he was.
That's what happened. Yeah. So he was actually here for opening week, but he hadn't had any time to play with the team or anything like that. So team fighting is also especially, that's kind of the thing. So I think that's what he was good at on Misfits. That's always, and I think that give them another week with him in the lineup to see. And I bet you once we see this team stabilize, because also, the Zach game, for example, I think Insanity maybe would be picking up maybe more of a carry mid laner, but Turtle is similar. He's like a souped up tactical, it's like he's a win lane, win game kind of guy.
Yeah.
So this team's still there's too many intangibles through this amount of time. But one thing I know for certain is that Shopify has more veterans. And I think on day 3, especially with I think morale wise and just depending on how those first matches go for 100 Thieves in Shopify, I mean, 100 Thieves, they face Immortal Saturday, but Fly won't be an easy opponent on Friday. I could see Shopify just kind of overall just coming out of the gate with still more in the tank on day 3.
Well, he'll probably end up being right, fam, but I'm still questioning it for now, and it may just be my anger, I'll call it still, or my reservations due to TSM has nothing to do with the players. I like the players. Obviously, I love Insanity, but I think the last one that we need to focus this week on, because we got a few minutes left, is FlyQuest Cloud9. I think that game is going to be a
Ooh.
banger. Now, we both have picked Cloud9 to be clear.
Ooh.
I think my main reasoning is going to be that bot lane. I know I didn't take it as much into consideration as I should have with NRG, but the more I've watched it, the more I worry that Masu and Busio are really inexperienced. And I think that it has been showing through a little bit, honestly. And I think if there's a team that can match the aggression, the top lane, I think plays. I think it's going to be Cloud9, and I don't think that they're going to be picking Vayne mid against a FlyQuest type opponent. To be clear, I think that they'll play something a little bit that's a little bit more meta. I believe this will be our second week on 14-2, right? So they will have had more time, I think, to maybe find some picks that they may like, but I really do believe that this is going to be the game of the week, not just because it's two great teams, but I think ultimately, like, this one, I think will be a back and forth game, and I really want to see FlyQuest push C9 to the brink. Like, I want to see them really challenge them. I want Inspired and Whippo and Jensen to just do some crazy stuff and really just make C9 have to work for it. And ultimately, if they beat them, I will be even happier because, again, I think that that's the kind of thing that, it's the whole iron sharpens iron thing, right? Like, if you're a team with a sword and the other team has a wet noodle, right? The only reason that you're going to lose that game is if you use the handle of the sword. And I would compare that in that way to the Shopify Rebellion C9 game. Shopify had a really heavy noodle, and C9 forgot to turn the sword around and use the pointy end. So in this game, it'll be sword versus sword, and I think the more skilled team will come out on top, but they will still make them sweat. That's where I'm at with that game. I hope that was a good analogy for you. Wet noodle fights are always stupid, and so I wanted to use something stupid to display my potentially very stupid point. But
no, it's a good point. It's funny. I feel like I agree with you. I think it's gonna be similar to the NRG FlyQuest game though. Like I think the early minutes are gonna be close. I think, Inspired might get the better of Blabber, like maybe once or twice early on. Blabber's kind of free swings. Inspired's very cerebral. That matchup kind of tends to swing either way, depending on how those first few interactions go.
I agree.
But I actually think this is a game where, come mid-game, we're actually going to see FlyQuest completely picked apart. Like, I think we're going to see a close early game that's really fun, and then we're going to see that C9 is clearly the better team, because there's a lot of familiarity here. I don't think we've seen teams cohesive enough to make FlyQuest look mortal, and we started to see a bit of that with NRG. But you're right about the bot lane. NRG, I mean, there was every time I looked up, I came out of an interview and I looked up, and like twice, I went into my interview and they had 4 people bot lane. And then I came out of my interview, and then 4 people bot lane again. And it's like a 40 CS lead. I think you're right. And it's not even any fault of Masu and Busio, who I thought have been fine. It's just they're young. They're going to be exploited. Yep. This is a strong bot lane, just like FBI and Hui. And I think what we're going to see is, you look at that top side, sure, great top side. Cloud9 has so much data on these guys, man. Like Jensen, they know Jensen better than anybody. Fudge's whole job in 2022, they handed him a piece of paper like, don't let Bwipo kill you on Olaf. That was his whole job on that team. Every series, just don't let him kill you. Don't let Bwipo do the Bwipo thing. Fudge is great at playing. One of his best things is losing gracefully. He's great at playing weak side laning, and there's no value. And Inspired has always said, also JoJo knows Inspired very well.
Yes.
I don't think it's going to be necessarily, I know exactly where he's going to be, but that has to count for something. And Inspired has gone on record with me and other people that since joining the LCS, Blabber is the only jungler that he feels really can give him trouble on a consistent basis. So I think we'll see some things in the early game, but I think we're going to see superior macro, superior execution around neutral objectives in the mid and late game that FlyQuest just can't match C9 on. So it's going to be one of those international games, I think, where we see oh, and T1 is even at like 15 minutes, and then it's over like in 25 minutes or something like that. You know what I mean? Not that C9 is that much better than
I was gonna
FlyQuest,
say
but I think that
C9's
is.
the LCK of the LCS.
I mean, the closest thing we're going to touch to it, right?
True.
But uh, but that's kind of the nature of how I see the game going. I think it'll be fun, but I think we're going to look back and be like, wow, that wasn't super competitive all the way through. It's going to
Which
be
is a bit of
competitive
a
early on, I
bummer.
think. Yeah, but I mean, hey, hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully I'm just a doomsdayer and I'm boring and some crazy stuff happens. Hey, hopefully FlyQuest wins. That would make for a much more interesting conversation in
Yep.
League.
Yep.
I just don't think that's likely.
I don't think so either. I mean, look, that's why I said I
Yeah.
was like, I think I would love to see those things happen, but I do
Mhm.
ultimately think that you're right. I still think it's going to be a sword versus sword battle. I just think that C9 are, again, they're the cream of the crop, and seeing them lose was good, and I think it's going to piss them off, and I think it's going to make them want to come out and play even harder. And when I say piss them off, like I don't think they're actually going to be like super mad, like, oh, we lost Shopify Rebellion. Like I think they're confident enough to know that like here's the reasons why we lost. If we ever decide that we want to do something like this again, let's make sure that we're on the same page, as to how we're going to do it and what it's going to look like. And I think it's probably, partially because, again, they were on a new patch and they probably, didn't have as much time with it, right? So um,
Mhm.
I completely agree with you. I think C9 will ultimately come out on top. I think it'll be interesting to see where I think FlyQuest will be a little bit better in the mid game than you think, because I think Inspired is going to be thinking ahead enough to really decide whether or not they are going to put a ton of effort into the grubs or into the dragon. And I'm going to be really interested to see which one that they focus, or if Cloud9 is going to dictate it and make them focus on the opposite one, and how they can
That's a good
kind of
way of
play
putting that.
around that. So I'm interested. I really am. And I appreciate you
Yeah.
saying that, by the way, because like I'm not making as good of points, honestly. Like,
No,
not
no,
as
no.
like
I
you think.
actually
And I'm not meaning that
no,
because of
no. I
you.
wanted
I'm
to
meaning for
I
me.
wanted to talk about the I actually wanted to jump on your sword versus sword thing because I think that's smart because I think I actually figure out here's what it is. If FlyQuest can win this game early, they will win the game. If they steamroll them,
I agree.
I think C9 will specifically plan for that and then win in the later stages of the game.
I
Even
completely
if the
agree.
early game is bloody, they have that superior advantage. It is sword versus sword, but it's like Link's Master Sword versus like a Minecraft sword. Like it can still do damage, but that's going to have less durability. And the longer the game goes on, the less formidable this sword is going to be until it finally breaks. I think if it
Okay.
goes late game, C9 wins.
Okay.
So I do like the sword versus sword thing, and then I think it's just a matter of one sword is more durable than the other throughout all phases of the game.
It's just going to be who
So I
picks
think
up the sword first.
yeah, and yeah, that's exactly right. And Shopify, it wasn't like a stomp of Cloud9, but they were the first team to put them on the back foot in the early game. That has to be where you start with this team right now when you're against them.
Well, I hope, if nothing else, the Fly comes with a really heavy noodle because they're going to need it. Um,
Yeah, and some interesting picks at least. I mean, Buipo's always good for something random, so
Dude, I
maybe we'll see
loved
Vayne
that
top.
Mordekaiser pick. That Mordekaiser pick was awesome. I think it
Oh, I did
played
want to. I'm
so
sorry.
well.
Yes, I wanted to highlight FlyQuest draft against Team Liquid was just.
Oh, it was
Oh
beautiful.
my gosh.
Yeah,
When
Untamed
your
had
most
him.
vulnerable
Yeah.
champion for picks is Oriana, you're a genius.
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe they got Ezreal Karma into Lucianami. Like, I don't know what the hell TL is doing, but like that composition was so disgusting. I was like, this is the best draft I've seen in the split so far. I should have highlighted that game in the last episode because
Yeah, I'm thinking about that now
oh,
too. One of us should
that
have
draft
said
was
it.
so good.
Uh, it was beautiful.
Oh man. Yeah,
I
and Mordekaiser. I think we should see more Mordekaiser. I think Mordekaiser is freaking incredible right now.
I
So
think
I hope
he's
we see more.
much stronger than people realize, and just being able to take a jungler out in a crucial fight over an objective, I think is just so strong. I mean,
Huge.
it's just yeah,
Huge.
it's massive. But yeah, I think that's gonna wrap it up for us this week. You'll have to let us know in the comment section below. Would you rather have the heavy noodle or would you rather have the Minecraft sword? I would probably pick the sword, but let us know which one you think. And as always, we really do appreciate you guys watching. Make sure you kick back and look at. We're still gonna have content coming out during the bye weeks, so don't worry about that. We'll figure out what we're gonna talk about. Nick and I, we're close enough to where I think we can talk about just about anything long enough to make it at least semi-interesting. So we'll figure that out. And yeah, guys, with that, we'll catch you on the next one.